You're 35,000 feet in the air, the seatbelt sign is off, passengers are settled in, flipping through movies, sipping drinks, completely unaware. Then, out of nowhere, everything changes. Pilots now have seconds, not minutes, to act. Because this isn't just a system failure, this is a raging fire at 35,000 feet. And that's an entirely different beast. Before we dive in, you need to understand one critical thing. There is no room for guesswork in aviation. When something goes wrong, pilots don't just react. They follow a precise sequence of actions. Every single task must be completed in order, and there's a reason for that. It's called the abnormal event response, a structured, step-by-step process that guides pilots through any emergency. For the purpose of this video, our aircraft of choice is the Airbus A320. Chances are you've flown on this aircraft before. It's one of the most common narrow-body commercial jetliners in the world today. The abnormal event response consists of 4 key steps: memory items, OEBs, operational engineering bulletins, ECAM actions, and the QRH, Quick Reference Handbook. Each one is critical. Let's break it down. Step 1, memory items. Some actions must be performed immediately. No time to grab a manual, no time to think. These are called memory items, procedures that pilots must know by heart and execute without hesitation. Seconds matter. These actions must happen before moving to the next step. Step 2, OEB, Operational Engineering Bulletins. Airbus gathers real-world data from airline operations. When they identify patterns, potential risks, or improved procedures, they issue operational engineering bulletins to flight crews worldwide. Think of this as real-time updates for handling rare but known issues. Step 3, ECAM, Electronic Centralized Aircraft Monitoring. ECAM is the aircraft's real-time diagnostic hub, constantly scanning systems, detecting issues, and guiding pilots through critical actions. It constantly monitors all systems, looking for anything out of tolerance. The moment something is wrong, it triggers an alert. It tells pilots exactly what's happening and exactly what to do. And here's the key. The ECAM knows the phase of flight. It doesn't just throw alerts randomly. It prioritizes the most urgent actions first. Step 4, QRH, Quick Reference Handbook. Once ECAM actions are completed, pilots refer to the QRH. This handbook contains everything from performance data to system resets to emergency or abnormal procedures. One final rule: confirm, then act. In an emergency, pilots don't just start flipping switches. Every major action, moving thrust levers, shutting down an engine, pressing a guarded switch, must be confirmed, because the last thing you want is to accidentally shut down your only working engine. Now, it's time for the engine fire. It's time to put this to the test. Let's step inside the flight deck, where seconds decide everything. Pilots are trained to follow a precise step-by-step response to handle the situation immediately before it gets worse. As humans, there is something called the startle response. That brief moment of shock and hesitation when something completely unexpected happens. The brain freezes, even for just a second, while it processes what just happened. And in aviation, a second wasted is a second too long. The first action, acknowledge the alarm. The cockpit is loud, alarms are blaring, and the first step is to silence the chaos so the flight crew can focus. There are no memory items or OEBs for an engine fire. The crew immediately begins the ECAM actions to handle the situation. In this instance, the ECAM displays engine 1 fire in red. Below it, a list of ECAM actions appears, steps that must be followed to secure the engine and put out the fire. Next, the pilots confirm which engine is on fire. On the A320, engine 1 is on the left, engine 2 is on the right. They don't assume, they verify. Accidentally shutting down the only working engine would be catastrophic. With an engine fire, the flight crew must immediately adjust power and ensure the aircraft stays stable, especially if the fire affects thrust. If the fire causes an uncontrollable thrust imbalance, pilots use the rudder to compensate for asymmetric yaw. On the A320, the aircraft detects the asymmetry and applies rudder pressure as long as the autopilot is on. The priority? Aviate first. Keep the plane flying. Once the aircraft is under control, the flight crew performs the ECAM actions. Every action is calculated, deliberate, and methodical. The first step? Confirm the fire. The crew doesn't just trust the alarm. They confirm. They use visual cues. Are there flames or smoke? They look at their instrument readings. Is the temperature rising? They use passenger reports. Is anyone seeing smoke from the wing? Next, cut the fuel. The affected engine's thrust is set to idle, and the engine master switch is turned off. This stops fuel flow to the engine, preventing the fire from spreading. If the fire doesn't go out immediately, the crew moves to the most powerful tool on board, the fire extinguishers. The A320 has 2 fire bottles, pressurized fire extinguishers built into each engine. The first bottle is discharged and the crew waits 30 seconds. If the fire persists, the second bottle is discharged. If the fire goes out, the flight continues with a single engine approach and landing. If the fire persists, an emergency is declared and the aircraft lands immediately. Lastly, once ECAM actions are complete, the crew consults the Quick Reference Handbook to finalize the emergency procedure, ensuring nothing is overlooked. It's time to communicate. The pilots declare an emergency with air traffic control. ATC gives the crew an initial altitude to descend to and a heading towards the nearest suitable airport. From this moment on, every decision revolves around one thing: getting the aircraft safely on the ground. How do the pilots decide where to land? They consider 3 critical factors. The closest runway, with sufficient length. The runway must be long enough for a safe landing. Wind conditions. A headwind can help slow down the aircraft. Emergency services available, fire trucks, ambulances, everything needed to handle the situation. If time allows, and only if time allows. The crew coordinates with the dispatcher, usually at the airline's headquarters or System Operations Control Department, also known as SOC. They help the pilots choose the best diversion airport with the necessary facilities. This includes gate space, ground services, maintenance support, fuel availability, and most importantly, CFR, crash, fire, and rescue. In other words, fire trucks and ambulances. But here's the reality: all these facilities, they're nice to have, but they're not required. In the US and most developed regions, crash, fire, and rescue services are standard as part of airport certification. Jet bridges and air stairs, not required. Every transport category aircraft is equipped with emergency escape slides, allowing passengers to evacuate quickly, even on the tarmac. However, in dire situations, the immediate priority is to land the aircraft safely, even if CFR services are not available. While a disaster may be unfolding, most passengers have no idea. But up front, in the flight deck, it's a different world. The workload is intense, the stakes massive. Yet there's no panic, no hesitation, just training, kicking into overdrive. Every switch flipped, every call made, it's all part of a process designed to turn chaos into control. Because that's the beauty of aviation. It's not luck, it's preparation. Every airline, every aircraft, every crew drilled for these moments, so that even when things go wrong, they go right. Jet engines are built to withstand the extreme. Designed to run through heat, pressure, and even bird strikes, every failure is anticipated and contained. Because in aviation, safety isn't a feature, it's the foundation.